The eldest son of Count Perdium is a madman. Giselain Perdium is utterly useless, uncontrollable, completely out of his mind. A man kneels in front of a scary knight. A ring of fire surrounds both men. The fallen man is in shock. He was the best knight of the north. How could such a devastating thing happen to him? He was defeated by a trash human being. The knight praises his own intelligence. He is so smart to build such an elaborate trap for the fallen man. The knight is no other than Giselain. He asks if the man likes his trap. The man is in shock. Not only did Giselain know of all of his plans, but he also trapped him. Giselain laughs. He didn't just trap the man. He knew everything the man had planned. How many people were involved in the plan, all the spies who helped him behind Giselain's back. He was aware of it all from the very beginning. The man screams at Giselain. He was a hidden ace card. How could Giselain ever know what the man was? Before he can curse at Giselain, Giselain shuts him up. No matter how many times the man tries to invade his country, Giselain will keep on winning and winning. Giselain removes his helmet. He will always know what anyone is trying to do. He has all the plans with him. 1 year ago, at the Luthania kingdom near the Perdium estate, Giselain wakes up suddenly. He looks at his hands and feet. He cannot believe that he is still alive. He doesn't understand what is happening. Just 1 moment ago, he was fighting a ruthless warrior. He was losing in battle, heavily injured and bruised. The warrior with red hair laughs as Giselain falls to the ground. He is happy that he was able to defeat Giselain the Great Mercenary. The red-haired knight is Idun, a noble knight from one of the 7 kingdoms. Idun asks if Giselain has any last words. Giselain regrets not being able to carry out his revenge. Idun smiles. He is surprised to see that the mercenary king is from the fallen house of Perdium, the eldest of the bunch. Giselain left his house after his sister passed away. Giselain asks how Idun knows he isn't from this world. Idun smiles more. He worked day and night trying to track Giselain down. He also worked with the Delphine household to bring down the house of Perdium. Giselain is shocked to know that other people were involved in this plan. He thought that the only household responsible for his family's downfall was the Delphine household, but he was wrong. Idun tells Giselain that there is no point in pondering the orb now. He should accept his face. Giselain shouts at Idun as Idun strikes his blade one last time. Giselain remembers getting the final chop. How is he awake at the moment, looking at his own reflection with a head on his shoulder? He looks younger too. Maybe he made the entire thing up in his head, or the mages were using him for some witchcraft they always do. Giselain gets ready to slay the mages who are responsible for showing him the terrible visions. Before he can grab his weapon and go psychotic, a voice calls him out. Giselain's personal soldier, Ricardo, enters his tent. Giselain quickly grabs him from behind and threatens him. If Ricardo answers his questions, he will let Ricardo live. Ricardo tells Giselain that he is crossing a line. He pushes Giselain away. Apparently, Giselain threw a massive childish tantrum and passed out for a few hours. Giselain doesn't remember anything. Ricardo tells him that he threw a tantrum because he wanted to guide the troops to the orc camps. Giselain doesn't believe one word that leaves Ricardo's mouth. Ricardo tells him to pull himself together. The people are waiting for him. Giselain wants to know where he is going. He's going back home to the Perdium estate. Giselain cannot believe his ears for a moment. He asked Ricardo to repeat what he said. You must have made a mistake. It is no longer the Perdium estate, it is the fallen Perdium estate. Ricardo thinks that Giselain has lost his mind. Giselain stands in front of the massive Perdium estate. It is in perfect shape. He remembers very well that the entire nation burnt to a crisp like a burnt fry. Ricardo asks if Giselain had a nightmare or something. If he calls the estate fallen in front of his father, the count, he will surely get exiled. Giselain pinches himself hard to wake up from this dream. He has a younger face, the estate in its original form, which can only mean one thing. Somehow, he was able to travel back in time. When he was young, Giselain used to hate the estate and the people. He always felt inferior, which made him do dumb things and always end up in trouble. As time passed and Giselain didn't get better, the more people avoided him. He was unable to stand all this pressure and ran away from home. Several years after he ran away, he became a mercenary knight. He fought hard and made a name for himself. When he returned to make up for his younger self, the entire estate was wiped. Ash and dust replaced the mighty Perdium estate. He had lost everything, but by some miracle, all of it is standing in front of him. All the people he holds dear are still well and alive. Thinking about this, Giselain starts to cry. It is still too early to celebrate this rebirth opportunity. He has a name to make for himself. The orcs need to be raided, and he remembers this day very clearly. Today, most of the raid squad will pass away. In his previous life, he followed the raid squad. The report said that there were only 3 orcs in the camp. He thought that someone like him was capable of leading his people to battle, but he was so stupid. In reality, the camp had at least 20 orcs who crushed his men very easily. It was his stupidity that led the raid squad to its doom. His past self was full of himself. His only priority was that the people see that he is a good leader, capable of being the heir to the Perdium estate. This time, he will not make the same mistake. The raid squad enters the orcs' camp, but the orcs are quick to attack. They ambush the raid squad and start throwing them around like bowling pins. The commander of the raid squad, Skoven, leads his men into battle. He tells them to defend themselves against the orcs. He realizes that a battle at this size was stupid. The orcs are too many in number. Before he can tell, an orc sneaks up behind him and tries to hit him. Ghislaine jumps in and saves Skoven from the orc. He then defeats the orc. The raid squad and the commander watch Ghislaine slay the orc with little effort. They are all in shock to see this change in personality. Ghislaine defeats the orc and realizes he can no longer use mana. He wishes he returned to the past earlier. He walks up to Skoven and demands his commander rights. Skoven looks at him in confusion. Skoven looks at Ghislaine like he has lost his mind. Ghislaine demands the rights to lead his troops to victory. Skoven gets up from the ground. He understands that Ghislaine is stupid, but this is crossing the limits to all stupidity. The lives of the troops are on the line, but this stupid man wants the lead. Skoven denies Ghislaine any authority. You may be a heir to the Perdium estate, but Skoven is not stupid enough to give him more than he can handle. Ghislaine gets pissed off. He knows that if some idiot wanted power in the middle of a battle of life and death, he wouldn't give it to. Skoven commands Ghislaine to fall back. He is still too inexperienced to lead the troops to victory and save them from the jaws of death. Ghislaine gets a dark look in his eyes. Before Skoven can even tell, Ghislaine swings his sword at him. Skoven barely dodges. He grabs Ghislaine by the collar and demands an explanation. Ghislaine doesn't say anything. An orc falls behind them. Ghislaine's sword is stuck in his forehead. He saves Skoven's life a second time. Skoven is shocked to see this change in Ghislaine. Ghislaine asks Skoven what the most important thing in battle is. The men around them are fighting for their lives, but these two want to be gay in the middle of battle. There is no hope for victory when the troops are shaking in fear. They need some momentum to win this battle. Ghislaine grabs his sword and runs into the field. He attacks the orcs mercilessly. The orcs drop to the ground like flies. The troops are amazed by Ghislaine's bravery and strength. Skoven looks at Ghislaine. He can't use mana in this field, but the skinny queen Ghislaine is fighting orcs like he is some sort of god. Even an idiot can tell that this battle is tiring Ghislaine, but he uses small movements to dodge the orcs' attacks and wipes them out in one blow aimed at their weak points. He's a mana-less swords master, or maybe something even greater than that. Ghislaine mocks the orcs, and they attack him. He runs off as the orcs follow him. The raid squad becomes confused because Ghislaine is guiding the orcs towards the Perdium estate. Skoven remembers that there is a cliff in the direction where Ghislaine is running. Skoven commands his men to raise a shield wall. They will follow Ghislaine and win this battle. Ghislaine knows that Skoven is a skilled commander and he will not hand over the command to him. He wanted to slay the orcs himself, but he has no choice now. His stamina is too less for this battle. Even then, this should be enough to take care of the orcs. Ghislaine jumps off the cliff. The orcs have nowhere to go. Behind the orcs, Skoven and his troops stand with huge shields. Skoven orders his men to push the orcs off the cliff. The orcs fall down, and the men win the battle. Ghislaine hangs from the cliff. Before Skoven can pull him to safety, Ghislaine loses his grip. A little girl with blonde hair talks to Ghislaine. She calls him brother and screams at him. These are fragments of memories he has of Elena. She grabs his arm and begs him to leave with her. Ghislaine wakes up suddenly. He is in bed with a towel on his forehead. The men were able to save him somehow. He sits up but feels a lot of pain in his body. This is the consequence of pushing his body past its limit. The pain just makes it easier for him to know that he is still alive. A woman bursts inside his room. This is Belinda. She is Ghislaine's personal tutor. She scolds Ghislaine for being reckless and fighting in the battle against the orcs. Ghislaine jumps out of bed and hugs her. Belinda gets worried that maybe she is in trouble. Ghislaine is very glad to see her. She was his companion through childhood. She is a motherly figure to him. Even if he was an idiot, she chose to stick by his side and show him true love and care. After his family fell, Belinda went missing. He was never able to find her again. To see her standing in front of him at this very moment is like a miracle itself. Belinda wonders why Ghislaine has become so affectionate suddenly. Ghislaine decides to tell everything to Belinda. He tells her that a calamity will come in some time and the house of Perdium will fall. Belinda thinks that Ghislaine has lost his mind. He continues with his rant. He came back from the dead somehow. Belinda laughs at him. Sure, the orcs almost got him. If he wants to call that rebirth, he can do so. She will continue to be a mother figure to his stupid antics. Ghislaine tries to explain the situation, but Belinda shuts him up. If he keeps this madness up, the Perdium estate won't be the only thing in danger. Someone will take him away and lock him up for hysteria if he keeps this nonsense up. Ghislaine gives up. It is useless to try to talk to Belinda about this matter. Belinda mentions some festival that will occur soon. What if Ghislaine was too hurt to even attend? He promised his sister he would take her there. Ghislaine had completely forgotten about the festival. The festival is a great opportunity to become friends with his sister again. Ghislaine was never interested in festivals because of his past trauma. Ghislaine asks Belinda the date of the festival. In 1 week, the festival will take place. In the previous timeline, Elena passes away at the time of the festival. This memory will haunt Ghislaine for the rest of his life. Ghislaine hugs Elena very tightly. She is surprised to see her brother act so affectionately. She asks if he is pulling some sort of prank on her. Belinda asked her to see her brother, but he is acting like a total creep. No matter how much affection he shows her, she will never forgive him. Ghislaine has no idea what Elena is talking about. She mocks him, mimicking his own accent. He told her that he wants to do nothing with her and that her breath makes him want to vomit. Ghislaine doesn't even remember himself being this mean to his sister. Ghislaine remembers that he wasn't the closest to his sister, rather he was a massive jerk. Ghislaine apologizes. Elena and Belinda look at him in horror. Ghislaine apologized. The next thing you know, pigs will start flying. Belinda asks if Ghislaine is feeling well. Elena thinks an orc struck him on the head in the previous battle. Ghislaine denies all these claims. He's perfectly well, and he got all the orcs all by himself. Belinda's and Elena's accusations hurt Ghislaine physically. He dramatically falls to the ground as Elena makes fun of him for returning back unconscious. The women laugh to themselves at their jokes. Ghislaine feels a sense of familiarity. Everyone is just how he remembers them before the calamity took them. He doesn't understand why he spent all his time on so many useless things. In the last timeline, he rejected Elena's request to go to the festival. He made an excuse that he is upset about the failed raid that took the life of the entire raid squad. That was the last time he saw Elena. Elena's body was found later with her bodyguards. He should have never left his sister's side. Someone knocks on the door. It is Elena's bodyguards, Jamal and Philip. Elena asks if something is wrong. The guards weren't allowed to come inside. They just wanted to make sure that all the supplies of the festival were available. Ghislaine is confused. Elena shouldn't be involved in tasks like this. Belinda scolds him for being a lazy bum. How would Ghislaine know that his sister is preparing the festival when all he does is sleep and be useless? Perdium is short of workers, so his sister volunteered to help. Elena leaves with her guards. In the previous lifetime, Ghislaine didn't care about what anyone in his family did. It is only natural that he doesn't know what everyone does around the estate. Ghislaine offers to help his sister. She stops in her path. Her brother, the lazy bum, offered to help on his own will. Maybe he did get hit in the head in battle. In the middle of the festival grounds, Elena and Ghislaine fight like siblings. Ghislaine looks too scary, no one wants to work with them. He should go back home and forget about volunteering. Ghislaine fights back. This is no way to treat someone who wants to offer help. He won't go back just because people are afraid of him. Ghislaine thinks of where he found Alana in his last timeline. She was far from the festival grounds. This means that someone took her by force or she was lured out. He needs to prevent. He will secure the area himself. For this, he needs to know the castle from the inside and the outside. An old man calls the siblings. Ghislaine knows this man. It's old man Fergus. He wipes his sweat and greets the siblings. Fergus grabs Ghislaine and starts crying about how he came rushing when he found out that Ghislaine fought the orcs. Ghislaine just wants to move on from this moment. Elena steps in and tells Fergus to take Ghislaine away. He isn't feeling well because he is being delusional. Fergus agrees with Elena. Ghislaine's slacker persona doesn't help him in the least. No one believes him. It can't be helped. Thankfully, he still has a week to work on finding out the castle's layout. Ghislaine demands Fergus to take him to the abandoned training field in the castle. He needs to go there to train. Fergus is also shocked to see this change in Ghislaine. The abandoned training room is much better than what he expected. He will easily train here to become the mercenary king once more. Fergus and his men kept the room clean in case Ghislaine ever decided to stop slacking and uphold his duties as a royal member. He knows that this is just a phase and Ghislaine will go back to his old ways very soon. Ghislaine's mood changes because all the time he was being a rebel, Fergus was cleaning and maintaining the room for him to return. Ghislaine shrugs him off and tells him that he wants to live a long life, so he is training. Fergus wants to know the source of this newfound wisdom. Ghislaine tries one more time and tells Fergus that he was indeed resurrected. Fergus tells him to cut the jokes, he will wait for when Ghislaine is done training. Ghislaine realizes that his methods for treating everyone like his enemies was wrong. He was only short-sighted. Ghislaine has just 1 week. His sister's death was blamed on some neighboring lord. Because of that, Perdium went to war and lost everything. His sister's passing was the starting point of the house or Perdium's downfall. This is where he will make things better. He needs a better physique and stamina first. He tries to control his mana. Mana is the energy that travels all through the world. For someone like him who has fought 1,000,000 battles, he can easily make a mana core. But that is not just his limit. With the help of a magic book and the mana all around him, Ghislaine is able to create many more mana cores. Right now, he can only make 3 mana cores. In his last time, he was able to make 5 at least. This technique is why he lost to Idun in his last life. He used up all of his mana and Idun took the last swing. This time, he will take Idun and the Delphine house down for sure. At the day of the festival, Ghislaine greets his sister. She is surprised to find him there. She was expecting him to ditch her. Elena tells him all the new changes she has seen in him. It seems like his old happy self is back. Ghislaine noticed that the better he was to people around him, the more people liked him. The general timeline of the world is somewhat the same, but some events can be controlled. Every little move has a big impact. Ghislaine just needs to know how significant his decisions are. The siblings go through the festival. Elena sits on some stairs. She is bored that the festival has the same things every year. Why is nothing new ever there? Nothing bad has happened to Elena. Maybe because he is here to protect her. 2 knights offer to take Elena to a new place. This rings alarm bells in Ghislaine's head. They are her personal bodyguards, Philip and Jamal. And they are the men responsible for the demise of the Perdium household. The 2 most trusted knights turned out to be traitors to the crown. Jamal and Philip were the 2 men responsible for looking after Elena since she was a child. In his previous lifetime, they were said to have lost their lives while protecting Elena after the festival. Ghislaine glares at the men. He follows them both outside the festival grounds of Elena. The new place is empty. Elena looks around hoping for some performance to take place. She questions the bodyguards for the lack of an interesting item in the place they brought her. Jamal tells her that maybe the performers aren't ready yet. Elena wants to know who would even be willing to act in such a dirty place. Ghislaine takes a look around. Sure, the place seems okay to any normal person, but all the escape routes have been blocked by obstacles and boxes. It sets up the perfect stage for an accident to take place. The guards must have taken days to prepare for this event. Elena grabs Ghislaine by the arm and drags him away. She doesn't want to attend a boring show that isn't even set up yet. Jamal tires to keep her in place. The people spent so long preparing for the event, she can't disappoint them yet. Ghislaine asks his sister if she works out or something. She is too strong for her age. Philip blocks her path and tells her to stay a little more. He has a deranged look on his face. Elena gets scared. She tells her guards to stop acting like creeps. Something is wrong with the both of them today. Jamal apologizes, but he doesn't let her go either way. Before Elena can question his intentions, a man with a hat walks out from a building. 2 other men follow the man with the hat. The man, Frank, compliments Jamal and Philip for their clean and quick work. Jamal accepts the praise and tells him that the deal has been complete. They brought the youngest daughter of the Perdium house. Frank spots Ghislaine in the background and questions why he is here. Frank never asked for Ghislaine. Elena hides behind her brother. Jamal says that Ghislaine is a freebie with his sister. He was stupid enough to follow them. Now he will meet his untimely demise. Ghislaine asks Jamal what took his loyalty to falter. He will pay for betraying the crown. Jamal tells Ghislaine to worry about himself first. He isn't the one whose life is on the line. All that he and Philip need to do is run away somewhere far where the Perdium household staff won't be able to find them. They were getting sick of this godforsaken nation anyway. There's a lot of people other than these 2 willing to leave Perdium anyway. Before he can insult the crown more, Ghislaine attacks Jamal. Jamal falls to the ground. It is Philip's turn next. He grabs Elena, but before he can even pose a threat, Ghislaine finishes him. He grabs Elena to safety. Frank's men are amused by Ghislaine's abilities. He's a very popular slacker. They did not expect him to have any real-life experience. Frank knows that this is Ghislaine and not some hidden card of the Perdium estate. He easily took down 2 men with attacks that had some mana infused in them. Elena asks her brother what is happening. The poor girl is too afraid to even form proper sentences. Ghislaine knocks his sister out with a jab. Frank thanks Ghislaine for his cooperation and help with the mission. He asks if Ghislaine was hiding his true power all this time. Ghislaine doesn't care about this NP. There's 3 men, 2 of whom are completely useless. Frank, on the other hand, will give him some trouble, but he needs to end this quickly and take Elena back to the house. Ghislaine has just one question: who made this request in the first place? Frank doesn't answer. Ghislaine was aware of this much at least, but it doesn't matter. Soon Frank will spill the tea himself. The men ask if they should deal with Ghislaine and end him. Frank doesn't want him to lose his life. If they immobilize him, he can only go mad like a sentient vegetable. He will be in so much pain, but he won't do anything. He will become Frank's masterpiece. Ghislaine attacks the men and fights them ruthlessly. He attacks the men and doesn't back down even once. A 3rd sword joins the battle, but Ghislaine easily blocks the attack. Frank is surprised by his abilities. He blocked an attack aimed at his blind spot. Ghislaine is quick to counter and he scratches Frank just a little. Frank steps back. He praises Ghislaine's strength. If he didn't have mana, he would not be able to dodge Ghislaine's attack. Ghislaine wants to know how Frank was able to dodge this attack. Maybe he focused mana on his neck to reduce Ghislaine's damage. Frank doesn't know where Ghislaine learned to fight like this, but this will be the last trick he pulls on them. Ghislaine smiles at Frank's threat. Frank is confused, but he blocked the attack again. He tells Ghislaine that these useless, mana-less weak attacks won't work on him. Before he can finish, red liquid comes out of his mouth. Frank looks at the red liquid. This attack was different. Ghislaine, with his current level of mana, should not be able to break through his enhancement mana shield. Ghislaine walks towards Frank. To be honest, he never expected a single person to be behind his sister's death, but he was wrong. Frank is the man who took his sister's life. Ghislaine releases his 3rd mana core. Frank gets overwhelmed by the amount of mana radiating from Ghislaine's body. He attacks once more, but Frank can only block. His hands are going numb from holding the attacks, but he can't do anything else. Soon this will all be over unless he does something. If a person uses mana, eventually a time comes when they can no longer use mana. But Ghislaine is the first man to increase his mana tremendously. It's as if Ghislaine has become a completely different man. Frank's sword breaks and Ghislaine doesn't stop. He takes Frank against a wall and asks him the same question from before. Who made this stupid request? Frank doesn't answer. He has one last trick up his sleeve. A small weapon comes out from his sleeve. If he will lose his life here, he will take the youngest child of the Perdium household with him. He points the weapon at the unconscious Elena. Before the weapon can even move, Ghislaine grabs it with his mana threads. He offers to make a deal with Frank. He tells Frank to not make any more stupid moves, and he will let him go if he answers the question. Frank doesn't know how Ghislaine was able to summon these mana strings so quickly. He remembers, though. Ghislaine was summoning something in his hands before this battle even took place. Ghislaine knows that Frank can patch himself up unless his mana core is destroyed. Frank feels his mana core shattering under the impact of Ghislaine's sword. Frank screams at Ghislaine for this stupid threat. If he breaks Frank's mana core, the entire area will be affected by the damage a broken mana core does. Why does he plan on dying with Frank? Ghislaine doesn't worry about this, though. He knows that only the untrained and unskilled can't control a broken mana core. He is perfectly able to control the aftermath of the broken mana core. By the look in Ghislaine's eyes, Frank knows that he isn't lying and he isn't afraid of the impact either. Frank knows that this might be his last moments. He doesn't want to die yet. He screams the name of the man. Count Desmond made the request to get rid of Elena. He needed to get rid of Elena so he could frame the Degrade family and start a war between the 2 nations. This confirms Ghislaine's suspicions. In his previous life, this work was left to be done by the ducal families and their allies. Duke Delphine was able to orchestrate this mess without ever playing a direct role in the downfall of 2 families. Frank confirms that this is the only reason he tried to hurt Elena. This doesn't stop Ghislaine, he doesn't let Frank go. Frank tells that Ghislaine should stop, otherwise he will not be able to recover. Ghislaine smiles. Frank was able to get rid of so many innocent lives and not ever once think of the impact it would leave on the families. Did he ever stop and think about what his victim was going through? Now that it is his own turn, he is turning into a scaredy cat. Frank laughs at Ghislaine. Getting rid of him will not change anything. The work that needed to be done at the Degard family is already finished. No one will believe an idiot like Ghislaine. Ghislaine shuts Frank up. He tells Frank that he has already lived through the events of this life. He knows how to do things right this time. He delivers the finishing blow to Frank. His mana core flies to the sky and explodes into a firework. The deed has been done. His sister is safe and alive. The men who came to hurt her will no longer do any harm to her. War is over. Suddenly, Ghislaine falls to the ground. His body has taken a toll. 3 mana cores was his limit when he was the Mercenary King. Even one has made him a pathetic weakling in this life. He remembers something very important from his past life. He rushes to an empty building and sees 2 bodies. It's the son of the Degard family and his personal knight. They were framed as the men who hurt Elena in his previous life, but they are no longer alive. They were already silenced before anything could be done. The moment this is revealed, the true war will begin. Ghislaine needs to hide this evidence as soon as possible. Ghislaine lights the building on fire and takes his sister away from the scene. A shadow sits on a tree and watches this entire scene unfold. As Ghislaine leaves, so does the shadow before anyone sees him. The shadow from the tree sits in a circle. Several men surround him, sitting in some very prestigious chairs. They demand why he and Frank could not do one job properly. Frank was the best man they had, but even he failed. The shadow tells them that the reason for their failure is no other than Ghislaine Perdium. The men laugh. Ghislaine Perdium is a lazy slacker who does nothing all day. How could an untrained man get rid of 3 very trained and skilled men? The shadow should know better than to shift blame on a useless good-for-nothing privileged brat. The shadow explains all the things he saw. Ghislaine was not the man he is rumored to be. All the reports about him were false. The shadow tells the men all the things he saw, the way Ghislaine fought and the way the men were unable to do anything. The shadow tells them that the Degard family has already been taken care of. It won't take much to start a war between the 2 houses now. The shadow asks for one more chance to do the task properly. The council men tell him to shut up. He didn't even gather more intel on the stupid Perdium boy. This failure has caused a lot of setbacks for the men. The men decide to get rid of the shadowed man for returning with failure. The audacity he has to show his face and ask for a second chance when he is already a failure. A loud noise joins the men. It asks what sort of a chance the shadow needs. The shadow promises to get rid of Ghislaine Perdium. The voice asks how. The shadow will initiate a duel between 2 houses and make it look as natural as possible. He already has a person in mind. The man for the job is Cain Lodges. Cain is a very famous swordsman who uses his strength in battle. Even though he is very young, he is the prime example of someone who has strength instead of blood in his body. No one in the entire North can match his strength in battle. Cain is also Ghislaine's first cousin. It will not be odd for the both of them to meet. The men and the unknown voice think over this new person. They agree on one condition. If the shadow man fails once more, there will no new chances or breaths for him. The shadow promises to deliver and not fail. At the Perdium Castle in the training hall, Fergus enters the hall to call Ghislaine. It is almost time to have food. Ghislaine should eat to keep up with his training. Ghislaine doesn't notice Fergus, but Fergus sees him train. Ghislaine uses his mana strings to levitate his swords and practice with them. He uses his mana string to fetch another sword. Fergus walks up to Ghislaine with a surprised look. He asks Ghislaine how he is able to do this trick. Ghislaine shows off his skills. He calls this the mana thread. It works similar to normal strings, but they obey the will of the person who summons them. In his past life, Ghislaine used these strings every day. Now he is too weak to wield them for a long time. He needs to work on his mana core so he can use this trick more often without tiring himself out. If he uses just one string, he uses less mana. This will come in handy when he has less mana, but still needs the strings. Fergus has seen a lot of things in his time. He has trained his mana a lot, but this is the first time he has seen mana being used as threads. Not long ago, Ghislaine was a lazy bum who didn't even train. Now he can use mana, train, and shape mana. How is he able to do this? Ghislaine asks if Fergus wants something from him. Fergus says that he came for something. He bows and thanks Ghislaine for protecting his younger sister the day of the festival. Ghislaine doesn't want any thank yous. It is his responsibility to protect his younger sister from any harm. He leaves to eat. A few days after the incident, the festival was paused. It was only natural to stop all activities since 2 very loyal guards tried to take the lady of the house away. Elena is in a pissed mood. No one believes her when she says that Ghislaine was the one to save her. She tells Ghislaine to say something to the public, so they stop calling her a liar. Ghislaine doesn't want to. It's not like anyone will believe him. Belinda fumes at the 2 creeps who tried to take advantage of Elena. Ghislaine is satisfied with his small victory. He saved his sister. He stopped a massive war from taking place. The enemies will not stop till the Perdium house is doomed forever. He cannot stop the enemies all by himself. He needs some form of military to save his household. He needs to get into politics to grow his influence and command an army. Food is served. It's a single slice of bread. Ghislaine looks at it in shock. He asks Belinda if this is some sort of a joke. Are they getting dessert early? Belinda tells him to look at his situation before making demands. The men shout outside the castle grounds. They want the main family to make up for the losses they faced for canceling the festival. The men demand the family to pay up. They must be swimming in riches after taking all their money. Ghislaine looks out the window. He wants to know what is up. Belinda fills him in with the situation. The men earn a lot of money from the festival that takes place every year. By canceling the festival, Ghislaine is taking money right out of their palms. They made a lot of money last year through trades, but even one day of the festival is a big loss for them. It's their right to feel upset. Ghislaine understands that the country is facing a very bad economic crisis. If something isn't done, the men will only become more and more aggressive. Ghislaine commands Fergus to send his men to calm the crowd below. Fergus calmly tells that there are no men. Most of the forces have been sent to the orc camp from last week. There are no men available now. Basically, Perdium sits in the middle of a war zone. The north is where the barbarians are. On the other side, a forest filled with monsters awaits. There is no money, there are no men or forces. The entire country is a pretty big mess. Ghislaine drags Belinda away from the table. She is the one who manages his finances. She should use his riches to calm the men. You see, Ghislaine isn't just a famous slacker. He is also broke in the most royal fashion. Belinda tells him that he is broke. His expenses were already cut in half because he spent his money like water. He asks Belinda to lend him money. She is also equally as broke. There is no food, there is no money, and there are no men. He may know the future, but what good is that if he has no resources? Ghislaine thinks about what to do. Ricardo rushes inside the meal room and bows. There is an emergency. Kane Lodges wants to see Ghislaine. Ghislaine is also shook. Kane beats Commander Scoven to a pulp. Ghislaine walks in the scene and Scoven is happy to see him. Kane greets Ghislaine and gives him a dirty, sly look. Finally, the main character has entered. Ghislaine Perdium thinks. A towering figure stands in front of him. The man greets Ghislaine. Ghislaine begins to recognize that face. It was the heir of the Lodges County with whom they had an alliance. The man's name was Kane Lodges. Kane Lodges was Ghislaine Perdium's only friend at that time, but also his enemy. Kane Lodges approaches Ghislaine Perdium as he stands near the body of a knight. Ghislaine Perdium asks Ricardo for a status update. Ricardo begins to explain that they had responded to disturbance at the tavern. Kane Lodges was there with his escort knights. Kane Lodges recognized Ricardo's group and asked if the rumor about the young master were true. Commander Scoven explained the details of the rumors to Kane Lodges. However, Kane Lodges was playing no games. He grabbed Commander Scoven's face, saying that he was lying to the heir of Lodges. The commander ended up with a good beating. That was all the details of the fight. Kane Lodges corrects Ricardo, saying that Ricardo should tell the truth. Kane Lodges explains that the commander had claimed that Ghislaine Perdium had took down an orc with his bare hands. Also, that he dealt with traitor escort knights. Kane Lodges feels nothing for the injured Commander Scoven. He says it was just a wake-up call to knock some sense into him. It would not have happened if the commander did not lie, Kane Lodges claims. Ghislaine Perdium begins to remember the man's personality. He was definitely this kind of guy. Kane Lodges always treated Ghislaine Perdium as his junior. He acted so superior. Every time Kane Lodges visited Perdium, he always made a big mess. Ghislaine Perdium could not do anything to deal with him. Plus, after all this trouble, no one could say anything because he was basically Kane Lodges' subordinate. No one looked down upon Kane. He was the better person of the two. Ghislaine Perdium had an inferiority complex. Kane Lodges had tons of confidence. His bold attitude was praised widely. It was fitting for a heir. This was the reason Ghislaine Perdium was criticized more. Kane Lodges takes note of Ghislaine Perdium's calm attitude. Usually, the noble would have charged down Kane for all of this fuss. A while ago in Lodges County, Kane Lodges is given an order. Take down Ghislaine Perdium. A hooded figure promises a great reward. If he succeeds, Kane Lodges' family would be given the support of the esteemed one. It was not a difficult task for Kane, however. Ghislaine Perdium was an heir of the land. He could not take him down so easily. The pitted man comes up with a plan. He says they could lure Ghislaine Perdium into a duel. Then Kane Lodges could defeat the heir. It would seem like an average dispute between two hares. No one could suspect a thing. The hooded man also says that he would accompany Kane Loges disguised as an escort knight. There was no need for concern. This was a rare opportunity even for a man like Kane. Kane Loges wonders for a second. To think he would have to take down his own cousin, his lane Perdium. He does not wait. Kane Loges cracks his knuckles and asks to go right away. Back in the present, Kane Loges wonders if they still want to eliminate Ghislaine Perdium, since something had changed about him. Kane smirks and starts to order Ghislaine Perdium. He tells Ghislaine to bring the thing that had been prepared for him. He says that since the festival was interrupted, it was time to continue it now. Kane wants to enjoy his time there, it seems. He asks Ghislaine how they had been in sync when it came to things like this. Kane asks to mess with Ghislaine. Ghislaine Perdium is dazed. He begins to remember what Kane was talking about. Kane Loges had always made Ghislaine Perdium prepare some good drinks and good female company every time he visited. Ghislaine Perdium always granted Kane his requests because he did not want to get beaten up. But this was not the case anymore. Ghislaine Perdium was stronger than before. Because of Kane, Ghislaine had to waste all his money. Ghislaine Perdium suddenly realizes his source of money has always been here. Kane Loges calls out to Ghislaine. He orders Ghislaine to bring it immediately. Kane is getting impatient. Ghislaine Perdium agrees that he will bring it. However, he asks him that Kane had a debt to repay him. Everyone raises an eyebrow. Kane Loges asks what debt. Ghislaine Perdium explains that he had been handling everything and prepared things with his own money. He asks for 1,000 gold, including the interest. Kane Loges is surprised that it cost him anything more than 100 gold. Plus, Kane says Ghislaine Perdium did all this just to thank him for being his friend. It was a sort of a friendship fee. Ghislaine Perdium claps back. He was speaking like they were equals now. Ghislaine had spent way too long being his doormat. Ghislaine Perdium threatens Kane Loges to pay up before he beats the life out of him. It was about the money. Things go quiet for a minute. Ricardo's eyes open wide. He asks his master if he was in his right mind. Kane Loges stomps his foot and gets up. He thinks Ghislaine Perdium is acting bold because Kane was going easy on him. Kane says that Ghislaine's strength was only a rumor. He was not actually that strong. Kane calls him an insect on this land. In the north, they called Ghislaine good for nothing because all he did was speak nonsense. Kane Loges makes a fist. He tells Ghislaine to get himself together before charging at him with a big punch. Ghislaine Perdium stands his ground and moves slightly to dodge the attack. The others are amazed at this movement. This angers Kane Loges, who attacks again. Ghislaine Perdium dodges again before swooping in and punching Kane in the gut. The punch was strong enough to make him spit out some red light fluid. Ghislaine punches again, but this time Kane blocks it. Suddenly, Kane drops to his knees. Ghislaine tells him to get up and stop acting like a baby. The people in the tavern start talking. It was the first time Ghislaine Perdium bad retaliated. He realizes this was just a game. Kane Loges was not actually hurt. He asks his escort about his acting. The stage was set. Now everyone would think that Ghislaine Perdium was the bad guy. This would be enough to justify a duel. It was rare enough to get good backing. They needed to leave a lasting impression. It was the perfect time to cut off Perdium, a falling power. Kane Loges puts up another act. He tries to play politics, saying he was attacked just for verifying the truth. Kane Loges begins to challenge Ghislaine to a duel. But before he could finish his sentence, Ghislaine Perdium smacks his face with a glove and challenges him to a duel himself. It seemed like the perfect setup for Kane Loges. Ghislaine Perdium says that Kane insulted him in front of the people of Perdium. He also beat up his knight, obliterating the dignity of the noble. Kane Loges goes quiet for a second. He thinks that Ghislaine was stupid, but this was just perfect. To him, Ghislaine Perdium was asking for his own doom. Kane Loges accepts the duel. He tells Ghislaine not to regret even if he meets his end. Ghislaine orders Ricardo to bring all the protesting merchants in front of the castle. He orders to tell them that they will make some big money. Since the atmosphere was suddenly cold and gloomy after the festival had been cancelled, even some tourists could not return out of regret. The town was in complete shambles because the people were not able to spend their money or their time. In such a situation, there should be an event that occurs so that they can be soothed. Surely the atmosphere calls for a duel between the young Master Kane and Ghislaine. The people of the crowd bet their money on the two, cheering for Kane to win the duel because they want Ghislaine to meet his demise and get what he really deserves. A counter is set up where the people can bet their money on the winner. The majority of the people bet on Zane, who gets super confident about the duel with Ghislaine. Ghislaine shows no emotion of fear or excitement. He urges for the duel to start already, but suddenly a voice resounds in the arena, halting everything. He says that since no person among the crowd has bet on Ghislaine, the duel cannot proceed in such a way. The result is way too obvious. Nobody is willing to bet on Ghislaine. They decide to change contents of the bet to how long he can endure the duel against Cain. A beat-up warrior walks up to the counter and places a heft bag of coins to bet of Ghislaine, who ends up winning. Belinda and Elena, who bet on her brother to win. The duel gets ready to commence, and Ghislaine tells Cain that he shall not make the first move because it looks a little strange for him since he is the older one. He takes out his long sword and gets ready for the attack from Cain to come at him. Cain also gets into position to attack Ghislaine as the duel starts. Cain gets into action as he jumps over Ghislaine, who blocks his attack. The attacks keep coming and Ghislaine keeps on evading and dodging the attacks Cain throws his way. Everyone thinks that Zane is definitely in the lead. Ghislaine is not even daring to attack him. Belinda panics and freaks out to Elena about them losing their bet. But Ghislaine is using a different strategy. He sees Cain having a freak out with his immense power, but knows that when he is done using all of his energy, he will get exhausted and will end up leaving openings and openings by the second. Cain strikes Ghislaine with a strong blow that shakes him to his core when he decides to take the blow. He ends up throwing Ghislaine up in the air and the crowd cheers at his demise. Ghislaine starts to glow as he says that he was going easy on him, but Cain definitely crossed the line. Now Ghislaine seems to be in a serious mood and gets into position to attack Cain. He's fast as lightning as he strikes Cain's torso before he can even register what's going on. When Ghislaine gains composure, he comments on Cain's swordsmanship. It was so obvious that Cain was trying to intimidate his opponent using his strength. Ghislaine tells them that he will show them the truth by opening their eyes, but Cain suddenly attacks him, questioning him how he would do such a thing. Ghislaine evades his attack once again as he jumps over him and back down. Another attack cones at him soon after, but Ghislaine manages to clutch his sword under his feet to prevent any further movement from Cain. He readies his weapon and slashes him at the neck in one swoop. The crowd falls into chaos all around as people unable to register what happened because it was all too sudden. People cannot seem to believe that Ghislaine was able to defeat young Master Cain. Some are in anguish that they lost their bets, and some are glad, such as Elena, for winning the bet. However, Cain has not met his end yet. He notices that the cuts on his torso and neck are shallow and not that deep. He evaluates Ghislaine's high level of sportsmanship. Ghislaine looks at Cain blankly before looking away and throwing away his sword next to Cain's dropped sword. He says that since there is such a huge gap in their strength, the duel won't be sufficient for entertainment, so he shall fight using his bare hands from now on and also teach him a lesson using his bare hands. Cain was egoistic about that the young Lord Ghislaine can educate him as he mocked him. So the young Master Ghislaine offered Cain that they will fight each other barehanded as in swordsmanship. The young Master Ghislaine was superior than him, and this gave Cain an advantage. And then the young Master Ghislaine increased the bet to 2 times higher as it became 2,000 gold. It made others shocked as it was supposed to be a duel. The man in the robe hears it, and he never saw anyone dare to challenge Cain barehanded to a fight, and that for the young Master Ghislaine's insanity, he should thank him. The guy at the betting counter started calling to place all the bets now as this even as barehanded fight between young Lord Ghislaine versus young Master Cain. Those who knew how Cain betted at Cain as challenging him in sheer force was stupid, but some betted on the young Lord Ghislaine. Cain laughed at the young lord for fighting him barehanded, but he had something else in his mind as he took off his cape and threw it on the other hand. He was holding his sword and said that he will fight with his sword. Belinda yelled at him for doing such a cowardly act. Cain started swinging his sword, and this marked battle started. An angered young Lord Ghislaine was really ready to talk some sense into Cain. The fight starts, and Cain came at the young Lord Ghislaine with his sheer power, nearly missing young Master Ghislaine. The dodge made by young Lord Ghislaine was super fast, and he moves in the position and hits Cain in the stomach and another punch to his chin. As Cain was in big trouble and it made him fall to his knee, confused what just happened. How can a small punk like young Lord Ghislaine could display such moves? The crowd was cheering as they have never seen anything like this before, and they were spectating that young Lord Ghislaine might actually win this. "Get up," said Lord Ghislaine to Cain as he was not even gotten started. Anger Cain gets up and attacks towards young Lord Ghislaine with all his might, attacking from left and right, but the movement of young Lord Ghislaine was too fast for Cain and was able to dodge all of his attacks. Cain always used to bow down on his own whenever young Lord Ghislaine showed up and was not able to see him straight in the eyes until they started to fight this battle. Young Lord Kislane grabs Kane's hand and strike his muscles and make him lose control, hitting him in the side, as it was that young Lord Kislane have to end him to secure Loja's family's future. Young Lord Kislane starts hitting Kane like there was no tomorrow. He hits high left cheek, his right cheek he heads. Young Lord Kislane hits Kane from all directions, not giving his any time to react or fight back. Young Master Kislane keeps beating Kane as he was nothing but a mere punching bag using a lot of energy. Why was the only thing in Kane's mind, and young Master Kislane holds him from hair and pushes his face up to look him in the eye and tells him that he pities on Kane's father as Count Lojas helped purdy him until it was on the verge of demise just because of Kane's father and young Lord Kislane's father were close friends. However, from beginning his son Kane had different idea in his mind. A few years ago, Count Loja's castle, Kane and his father were arguing about sending more support to purdy him again. Kane argued with his father about even if he was a friend with Count Purdium, they also having a hard time to survive themselves, why father keeps investing in a land that's just slipping away from grass. It was like pouring water into cracked bucket, as it would leak out all the water. This argue was up because it was not even a week and Kane's father was going back again to help Purdium, and Kane was really upset about it, and he asked his father to not go. But his father was a good friend with young Lord Kislane's father, and he was doing all this because of that they were friends, and that was the only reason. Suddenly, Kane comes back into present as he sees a punch flying towards him, smashing his face. This should educate you, said young Lord Kislane to Kane, and asks him to get up while reaches out with his hand. Suddenly, Kane admits defeat, which shocked everyone as they couldn't believe what just happened. The man in the robe was also shocked, as it was not possible that Kane would admit defeat to someone just like that. Some of the crowd was happy and some of them sad, as some won money and some lost who bet on the fight. Even young Lord Kislane's friends were also looked shocked that he won, as crowd cheered them. Comes the man in robe yelling at Kane. How could he admit defeat so early just because he had a little bit of disadvantage? Let me go, I am done, says Kane as he faces away from him, and now he grabs the attention of young Lord Kislane and he says to the man in robe, well, I got to do what I got to do, right? And he yells to the crowd, gaining their attention, that this man here is volunteering to pay for all the meat and drinks for everyone gathered here. Young Lord Kislane used this trick to make him pay for what he did and said to young Lord Kislane, and it made crowd excited that it's been long they had a feast and people started praising your lord as he is the best. This angers as he didn't agree to this in the bet, so Kislane holds his shoulder and say that this the price for losing the duel, and it must be cleared that this shouldn't be deducted from the bet as this was spirit that it. And if you tried anything stupid or tried to run away, young Lord Kislane, make him hear what will happen, so he had no choice. The next day, young Lord Kislane was in his room alone, and he opens the chest, which had all the gold. The gold was enough for him to hire a small mercenary corps with this much money, but it takes a lot of time to really grow money, as they would not wait for him. This makes young Lord Kislane realize that the business he wants to do needs him to prepare faster. In the meantime, Belinda and his sister comes into the room, making his suddenly closing the chest. Where do young Lord Kislane plan to spend all his money was their question to young Lord Kislane, so he asks his sister that does the want sum. The answer was not that, but she was just curious, and that's why she asked. Belinda thought that he will use this money to buy a gift for the young lady Amelia, as it was her birthday soon. This made him shocked, as Amelia was her fiancée. Kislane wonders out loud about him having a fiancée. Belinda teases him about being embarrassed. The fiancée in question is Amelia from the Count of Rafel's family. Kislane pauses in shock as he remembers the girl, Amelia, a noble among other nobles that everyone admires, but he knows that later on she will end up leading rebellion. She sings the hymn of Pedrium's downfall. Amelia is a traitor. He asks Belinda about the return of his father, and she replies that in about a week, the Lord will come back home. Looking determined, Kislane walks away to take a quick trip to the Rafold estate to collect some of his money. Amelia kneels in front of a little boy who looks homeless as he is not wearing any shoes. Amelia offers her own shoes as she says that no one other than herself shall go barefoot in her own city. She turns to her attendants and tells them to provide the homeless with food, shelter, and basic necessity. The preparations are immediately carried out, and the general public thinks of how generous Amelia is and thanks her to sing her praise all around. At the court of Amelia, she gets a foot massage by her workers as they thank her for doing such hard work as usual. She pets her cat as she says that her father has always demanded absolute obedience from other people, but the masses always follow those who keep them warm and fed. She acts out like this in order to win their hearts, so that she is the one who ends up getting the succession. Amelia smacks the guy in the face with her foot as she asks him about his duel against the Northern Sword Master. Bernarf apologizes that he lost on purpose because winning would draw too much attention towards her and her actions. It is not time that they reveal their claws yet. He kisses her feet as he promises her that his sword is hers to wield. Amelia turns to him and tells him that he must not act like a weakling. The Action Guild is not something that Amelia needs to worry about. They have been buying all materials that are used to rebuild the ruined forest of Beasts outposts, which was already destroyed by orc attacks. They are also recruiting all the soldiers and knights that are leaving Pedrium. Amelia tells him to maintain the disguise of an ordinary merchant guild until they are fully prepared. One of the attendants announces that Kislane has showed up at the gate to meet the young lady Amelia. Amelia looks annoyed at that and asks what he would want with her. The guide tells them that he wishes to speak about the merchant guild. This leaves both Amelia and Bernarf in shock. In the reception room, the two sit across from each other. Kislane tells her that he wishes to give her birthday present earlier and puts a flower on the table. It is something that he found in the Guild Action Guild. As Lord Giselle entered the room and as he chose the chair to sit on, Bernarf was waiting for the assassin to suddenly attack Lord Giselle from behind. Because the assassin was hiding in the armor statue behind the chair, he performed a surprise attack as he was trying to assassinate Lord Giselle, but being able to see it first and holding his sword in hand, Lord Giselle was able to fight back the other assassin. As well as the assassin stabbed the chair in which he was sitting, and the sword stabbed through the chair like it was a hot knife through butter. But thankfully, Lord Giselle was able to dodge it, attack back to the assassin, and threw him flying in the air. Others were very shocked at how he could dodge while the attack was disguised under the politeness of the host. The poor hospitality of Ripple, followed by attacks and a battle raged between the two as there was no manners in Ripple, said the Lord Giselle, while he was blamed that he was the one who rudely acted. Firstly, that he barged without any notice into the room and upset the young lady in the room, and someone like that does not deserve proper manners. Meanwhile, the battle continued and swords collided with each other and both nearly missing each other. Bernarf, who was attacking Lord Giselle, was quite impressive with the sword, as it was really hard for Lord Giselle to carry on dodging his attacks and blocking few. Bernarf was surprised that Lord Giselle was quite good in fighting and was able to dodge his attacks, as it seemed to Bernarf that Lord Giselle was not a complete novice. "Why you are taking that scoundrel seriously," said young lady to Bernarf. "Hurry up and finish that scoundrel and bring me his head," she said. Bernarf was seemed to be taking the young lady's words very seriously, and disappointment was not an option for him. He warms himself up and says, "Shall we begin?" as his aura was really high and sword pointed towards Lord Giselle. How dare a mere escort knight give orders to Lord Giselle? Made Lord Giselle really angry, as Bernarf was only providing protection to the young lady. "I'll do as you wish," said Bernarf, and started attacking Lord Giselle. With his attacks, he became quite fast, which made Lord Giselle really surprised and hard to dodge him. Confident, Bernarf attacks again, and they both raise their swords to attack each other. Lord Giselle was able to fight equally with Bernarf and was able to keep up with him. Lord Giselle uses his techniques against Bernarf like the one he used before starting the real fight, and he almost stabs Bernarf with his sword, but Bernarf was able to dodge it with his hand and attack back. Lord Giselle was able to dodge his attack because he knew the attack used by Bernarf, but somehow with fast speed able to hit Lord Giselle, and this resulted in him to fall on the ground. Bernarf attacked Lord Giselle again, but this time Lord Giselle was able to dodge it and stand up again to gain his stance while jumping high in the air doing a backflip. Now Lord Giselle knew that Bernarf was using mana to withstand it. Bernarf was quite impressed with Lord Giselle, as he was not something he heard about him in rumors, and you can never know someone how good a fighter they are until you fight them by yourself. The swordsmanship used by Lord Giselle was thought by Bernarf that Lord Giselle learned it through real combat rather than systematic training, as Lord Giselle might have picked it up naturally while fighting barbarian tribes quite often. Such techniques might work on the battlefield, but it won't work on Bernarf, who was knight and had quite experience in swords and fights. Bernarf was able to disarm Lord Giselle and threw his sword away, as he was confident that this will end here and he will be able to defeat Lord Giselle. But it was just Lord Giselle learning Bernarf's techniques, and he expected Bernarf used too much mana and his precise thrusts with the sword to narrow the gaps and relentless stabs aimed at the head of his opponent, and its messes with both timing and distance. Meanwhile, Bernarf tried his best to attack Lord Giselle, even holding him down. It was clear that at close range, the difference in physical build made it hard to overpower Bernarf with technique alone. Lord Giselle was a little bit disappointed that he shouldn't have picked a fight with Bernarf to begin with, but Lord Giselle was also one to finish it quick, so Lord Giselle used mana stings to reach for his sword, and the sword was picked up using mana thread. It shocked Bernarf. But it was too late as the sword was already hitting Bernarf at the back of his head. Meanwhile, Lord Giselle jumps in the air and kicks Bernarf in face using his knee. Bernarf was quite injured with that attack and also shocked young lady as she yelled Bernarf. But it was already late as Lord Giselle was already on top of Bernarf with his sword in his hand. But somehow Bernarf uses his sword to repel Lord Giselle attack and throwing him off. Young lady, you need to leave, says Bernarf, as he knew that his opponent was no ordinary fighter, as he had heard of the rumors and how could not guarantee the safety of young lady from this point on. I will fight with everything I have from now on, says Bernarf to Lord Giselle. That was what Lord Giselle wanted, that Bernarf attacked him with full strength and didn't hold back, as Lord Giselle was really excited that after this long time in search, he has finally found a worthy opponent which was as powerful and worthy enough to face Lord Giselle. The young lady runs into the corridors of the castle, holding her cat, enraged that how would it be possible for Ghislaine to humiliate her like that. She was trying to find the suspect who would leak the information about the merchant guild to the crazy madman Ghislaine, and that he knew a lot of details if he didn't get information from inside. The rumors about Ghislaine were that he ended the orcs, and also he protected his younger sister from assassins, and even defeating the Hair of Loges were seemed just rumors, and was judged that his past was just luck or exaggerated information about him. But the reality was different, as he was really a good fighter, and that made her flinched. As the young lady was running through the corridors of the castle, she saw that there were no guards at the posts protecting the corridors, and then suddenly she saw someone in a robe standing in the middle of the corridor and looking away from her, and all the guards were lying on the ground unconscious, as if someone ended them all in a brutal fight. That shocked the young lady, and it caused to catch the attention of the assassin in the robe, turning towards the young lady with a grim face and smile on her lips. It's been a while, ma'am, said the assassin in the robe, as it became clearer who was in the robe. It shocked the young lady as she knew her, because she was the servant from Perdium. Suddenly, the assassin is right behind her and putting her dagger against the young lady's neck and telling her to be quiet. It shocked the young lady that how she could be so fast. There was a spider on her lips, because it was believed that during the engagement ceremony, the servant heard a conversation between Count Rayfold and her lord, that the brothers of young lady teased her for having creepy spiders all around her. So the young lady raised the spiders to get revenge on those who laughed at her, and she used the spiders to really tease the younger brothers. It wasn't sure whether her actions were to overcome a trauma or a show of self-affirmation, and the servant said that this kind of personality doesn't suit the young lady, as she crushes the spider, which was on young lady's lips. This made sure that resisting the servant who had the knife around young lady's neck was not a good idea. Now the battle between Bernarf and Lord Giselle was really going on. Giselle felt that the air was heavy in the room as he saw Bernarf using an overwhelming amount of his mana. An entertaining opponent, you say? Said Bernarf, as it would only come out from a humble mercenary and not a noble, while Ghislaine didn't agree, as he thought that this should not come from a simple bodyguard like Bernarf. Young Lord G.H.S.Delaine yells Bernarf with anger while attacking that it was a dishonor to nobility. Bernarf keeps attacking Ghislaine, and with many near misses, Ghislaine was quite shocked that Bernarf so fiercely, and it was enough play while Ghislaine was counterattacking, but somehow Bernarf was one step ahead of Ghislaine all the time, as he thought that it was his final attack, and Bernarf was able to injure Ghislaine as Ghislaine prepared himself to take the hit on his shoulder to deflect the blade and counterattacking right way, which proved that Bernarf shouldn't let his guard down until the very end. But that was the difference between a real solider and someone who swings the sword just for entertainment through Bernarf. As the fight continued between the two, Ghislaine was attacking him fiercely, and they both were attacking each other, meanwhile dodging also, and this was quite entertaining for Ghislaine, because he loved a good fight. Ghislaine reads his enemy moves, as his enemy Bernarf was able to control the flow of fight with his overwhelming speed and his increased reach, and also successive attacks, which meant any attempt at close-range counterattack through grappling is instantly nullified. In a binding clash, Bernarf makes it seem like his and the enemy's swords are entwined, making it look like they cannot be separated. In the current stage of Ghislaine's mana, he cannot counter Bernarf's strength, but that the mana which Ghislaine is currently using to fight with Bernarf, which is somewhat same or less powerful in front of Bernarf, as he can easily dodge any attacks made by Ghislaine, and also was able to deflect and attack at the same time, while also Bernarf was able to disbalance Ghislaine, and also was able to attack and even make Ghislaine get injured and consume a slash wound on the shoulder. It was a shame that the fight had to end soon. As Bernarf was confident he was able to control the flow of fight, he was not expecting any changes in mana from Ghislaine, but there was something Bernarf overlooked, was that Ghislaine had a technique which he has not shown to Bernarf, was his unique mana cultivation technique. As Ghislaine focuses on this unique technique, mana glowed pink and the power of it was insane. And this unique technique was Third Core Unleashing. It gave Ghislaine superpower and speed, and the sword glowed pink. Bernarf tried to block it, but with such power and speed, Ghislaine makes his sword goes flying and hitting the ground. Shocked, Bernarf couldn't believe how it was possible that young Lord Ghislaine was able to wield such explosive mana during combat. As he looked to the Ghislaine who was determined to end Bernarf, suddenly came a voice stop, which seemed to be right on time to save the life of Bernarf, as Ghislaine's sword was resting on his forehead, ready to penetrate and end him. "Take it," she said, the young lady who was still in control of the assassin, holding knife to her throat. 10,000 gold, take it and disappear from my sight, said the young lady. "Why bother now?" said Ghislaine. It would have been better if she would have given it to Ghislaine when he asked politely. "Is this too much to call this a lover's quarrel?" said the assassin in the robe to Ghislaine. They seemed to have a difference in the opinion, as it was going to cost more for the young lady after all this fight and battle with Bernarf, as now the fee has gone 20,000 gold. Guards on the ground lay dead, and the aftermath of chaos was all over the castle. As weapons were all over the floor, came the sound of breaking ceramic thrown on the floor. Intentionally turned out Amelia, the young lady, enraged and disappointed, standing in the room with Bernarf. "I apologize, madam," said Bernarf, as his opponent was stronger than that of he heard in the rumors, and that it was his mistake that he didn't examine his opponent before the fight and used sheer strength. But his opponent unleashed mana that surpassed even the high-ranking knights in an instant. Amelia was really shocked that Ghislaine Perdium was changed a lot, and it was suggested by Bernarf that would the young lady Amelia would like to report it to Duchess Delphine's family, which enraged the young lady Amelia as she held Bernarf by his collar and said, "Watch your mouth. Do you have any idea how terrifying the Duke Delphine was? If today's event comes to light, our heads will be the ones to roll." The only reason the young lady Amelia allied with Duke Delphine without her father's knowledge was because she made a secret pact. That pact included the exchange for helping young lady Amelia get rid of Perdium, as he promised to support the young lady Amelia's plan for rebellion. As this event was to expose what happened in the castle, the young lady Amelia's brothers will no doubt have her ended. If the young lady Amelia's father gets to know the secrets within the guild, they could find out the pact between the young lady Amelia and Duchess Delphine. Amelia and Bernarf must find a way to end Ghislaine, no matter what was the cost. As Bernarf understood it, young lady Amelia asked him about the condition of Ghislaine after their battle. As it turned out that Ghislaine endured multiple cuts all over his body and a large wound on his shoulder, which he got during the battle as he deflected Bernarf's blade using his shoulder, and because Ghislaine just used a lot of him mana to fight Bernarf, so he would not be at his best for a while, resulting him to not being able to gain strength like before. But they would not be able to eliminate Ghislaine if they used Territory's knights, if they wanted to leave no trace, and the young lady Amelia knew so. For such a reason, the young lady Amelia suggested to Bernarf something which made him shocked. That could it be the wild felines? Amelia strategized to send war orphans, those who were without lineage and those without status, and gather a dozen shoulder-trained in mana and send them to a specific valley, and which was the only direct path to Perdium from the Rayfold territory, and it was rarely visited, and the narrow terrain made it perfect for handling things quietly, and Bernarf would make sure that the warriors were fully prepared. The young lady Amelia was full of rage as she wanted Ghislaine to pay for the humiliation he caused her. The chariot rode away from the castle as it carried Ghislaine and Elder, and the Elder asked young Master Ghislaine that is he really okay as he tended to his wounds, but the wound was not deep, and for something this reckless it was not so bad, and the gold Ghislaine received was enough for rebuilding his territory, which was like saving years of time. As Ghislaine really wanted to eliminate Amelia, but it could avoid territorial conflict, and it would endanger the territory. As Perdium was already struggling to defend itself against barbarians, so withdrawing now would be the best move. In fact, Ghislaine knew the secrets of the Artium Guild would make it very difficult for them to act, and Ghislaine was ready to take full advantage of this situation from the young lady Amelia. Belinda was waiting for the young Master Ghislaine to say something about the plan, so she asked it by herself that did it turn out as Ghislaine wanted, as he told Belinda to subdue the guard if she heard any fighting going on inside and take Amelia hostage after she left. Confused, Ghislaine thought that it was Elder Fergus's job to handle it. It turned out using a lot of mana had its disadvantages and consequences of opening the third core, but it was not as serious as the last time, but still happened every time he used his power and was not a good thing. Ghislaine needed to find a way to secure his mana quickly. Suddenly, Belinda held his hand and he felt her mana as she used a needle to heal Ghislaine's hand. It was shocking for Ghislaine that Belinda used her mana to clear stagnant mana path a little, and this kind of treatment is only possible with a deep compressed mana. Now it was clearer to Ghislaine that it was his mother who brought her here and knew that she was not an ordinary servant. Ghislaine wondered what Belinda's true identity was, and he didn't know that someone with the level of Sen like Belinda would work as a servant in a rural area, but it was good that strong people in the territory were better. Belinda asked young Master Ghislaine that she trusted him and will help him without hesitation, but she wanted to know that why Ghislaine needed such large sum from Lady Amelia. He said that there was something he intended to do and needed to spend the money, as it was only Amelia which was close to them with such wealth. If all this disaster reached out to Rayfold's ears, it would be a problem, but Ghislaine was sure that Amelia would not do such a thing and that Belinda should trust him. Belinda asked him to tell her what the money will be used for, and both Belinda and Elder were shocked to hear the answer. It was the Beast Forest. Ghislaine wanted to develop the Beast Forest, as it was impossible, said the Elder. It was attempted to do so by his great-grandfather. Suddenly, Ghislaine remembered the request he made to the Elder before entering the castle to find someone for him. The Elder knew the person he was asked to find was at the location Ghislaine mentioned. As long as the man is still alive, Ghislaine was going there to convince them, because he knew that after what happened with Amelia, it will not be easy to leave them alone. Knowing her, she would obviously try to end and silence Ghislaine. If things go wrong, I and Elder Fergus can put up a good fight, said Belinda. While this was reassuring, but that was not what Ghislaine planned for them, as their field was different. They needed a charge captain, and they were going to the person suitable for it. As they reached the destination, the place looked like ruins and the residence was completely falling apart. Suddenly the door opened and an old man came out of the door, asking who is there. Everyone was shocked seeing him like that. Belinda asked Ghislaine that this sick man was really the one he was looking for and would be suitable for battle. Ghislaine was certain that this is that man which he needed. Proposed to get lost by old man, he closed the door. As he entered inside the residence, Ghislaine introduced the old man as the captain of Ratatosk mercenary group. The old man was Gillian. Could this be a member of the Ratatosk mercenary squad? They were those who mastered most weapons of war, but the squad no longer existed. Their bravery was so famous that even other knights in different countries would have heard of them. The leader of that squad was Jia. Ghislaine knew this, and he wanted Gillian to join him on his mission. Suddenly, an axe came flying towards Ghislaine. Nearly missing him and tearing up his dress from shoulder came the voice of Gillian. So you know me, he said. Everyone else was shocked with this dishonorable act and took out their swords in order to protect Ghislaine. Gillian asked the young master, why are you here? And he mentioned eternal punishment, which was a disease possessed by Gillian's daughter, which was considered incurable. At that time, it was high fever, hemoptysis, red spots blooming like petals. Those who suffered from it with agony like prisoners being punished. That is why it was named eternal punishment. As Gillian's daughter screamed in pain and agony, it caught the attention of all of them. It turned out that somehow young Master Ghislaine knew it was not late yet and that he could cure the disease, as in his past life he tried to recruit Gillian, but he was no longer in this world. It was said that he took his life after her daughter lost the battle with eternal punishment disease. The condition of Gillian House showed that he spent all his savings on treating her daughter, but was not successful as there was no cure at the time. All he left was his weapons. It hurts, Dad, said the poor girl was suffering as she wanted to die and get rid of this pain and agony. The young Master Ghislaine wanted to treat her immediately, but Belinda stopped him as she was scared that this disease might be spread to the young master, as not even the priests could heal this disease. That's why it was called disease from gods. As it turned out, in the past life, Ghislaine was able to remember the cure for the disease, as later on it was curable using so exotic and expensive herbs. As he handed over the list of ingredients, he made sure that Belinda did get everything without missing a single one, as it was very important to make the cure. The knowledge was a crucial element for mercenaries to survive in the wild and on the battlefield. So the young Master Ghislaine started making the cure for the disease, as he knew the method was simple from his past life. The only problem was that the ingredients were incredibly expensive. Turns out the ingredients included fairy blessing grinded with the herbs, then passed into a jar and to pour in spirits, shake well and rested a bit, then added the remaining ingredients and stir. The young master asked Gillian to give this medicine and make his daughter drink it. Without thinking, for once desperate for help to heal his daughter, he fed her the medicine, hoping for the best. Alas, the red spots started to disappear and the pain started to reduce as peace took over. Rachel, the daughter of Gillian, shocked everyone, including Gillian. It seemed the medicine prepared by the young Master Ghislaine was working, but how it was possible? Not even scared power could heal her, was the words of Gillian. The sacred power was not powerful as it relied on stimulating the body's vitality and regenerative ability to overcome the disease. So can his daughter be really cured? As Gillian was on his knees holding the young master Ghislaine, it was possible that Rachel will recover within 2 months. Hearing this, Gillian was on his knees and wanted to know what Ghislaine desired from him, as it was not for just curing his daughter. The young master would travel this far, however, the only thing he had left was his body and the weapons. He was so thankful to Ghislaine that if he wanted Gillian to be a worker or dog, he would not mind to be. The young master Ghislaine didn't need a worker, but he needed Gillian, the true leader of the Ratatoskr mercenary squad. Gillian looked towards Ghislaine and saw in his eyes and kept wondering what these eyes desire. He stood up and cut down his pony hair and threw it on the ground. The aura was so immense that it shocked everyone. Gillian was so different from before. He asked Ghislaine as if there was only them or someone else, also because turned out all this time he knew someone was hiding and listening to their conversation, so he threw his spear to the wall and pulled the rope attached to it, and came with it someone in robe which was sent by the young lady Amelia to spy on the young master Ghislaine. Ghislaine didn't want to use his sword, so Gillian took care of it with pleasure, as there was no hesitation in his movements. With this, the young master Ghislaine has secured a crucial piece of the future plan of territory reconstruction. The reconnaissance unit got ended, which made him angry, and he turned out to be the leader of the wildcat traffickers Vigo. Bernard told the wildcat traffickers that Ghislaine would not be able to detect anyone because of his recent battle with him, let alone end them. Maybe the intel was wrong, but it was Gillian who joined the young master Ghislaine's group. Hearing that, Vigo was enraged and made sure that wasn't really Gillian. Turns out Gillian was his former captain who abandoned them because of his daughter being sick. In the valley, Gillian was in charge of the carriage which carried his weapons, and Ghislaine and Belinda, as they rode, Belinda was quite upset with all the stuff Gillian brought, and it was suffocating for her, but there must be a reason behind that. The most important thing was that they needed to escape the rift. Belinda seemed to know the Watcher, who they captured at Gillian's house, and the mask he was wearing was from wildcat traffickers who were quite powerful. Belinda seemed to know quite much about them, and when asked by the young master, she changed the topic. Anyhow, the young master and the rest of them must be very careful. The young master was calm as he knew that Gillian was with them, so it will be fine. They rode into the night through the rift, and suddenly there was an ambush, and out came 2 wildcats armed and attacking Gillian. Gillian, being a warrior, sensed it and was ready to defend them. The wildcats attacked him from both sides, and Gillian used a dagger and his axe to block them, and afterwards injuring them. Gillian realized as a huge tree fell in their way that it was a trap, and that they could be crushed, so he stopped the horses while surrounded by the wildcats. Vigo came in front and said, "You, the former captain, Ratatoskr mercenaries." Gillian, a coward who disbanded the entire group of mercenaries because of his daughter. Gillian resisted that he doesn't know Vigo. Vigo was enraged because of this, and he gave orders to his mercenaries to attack Gillian from all sides and end everyone. The young master Ghislaine asked Gillian if he needed any help, but Gillian refused and told him to take rest, because this fight was something personal, and also Gillian wanted to warm up. The wildcats attacked Gillian from all sides and were able to fend them off by just a few strikes and ending many of them. After this, Vigo was sure that Gillian was just as strong as he used to be. He commanded his units to spread out in 2 groups and hit Gillian from both sides. Gillian jumped on his horse, which had his long spear axe, and Gillian took out and started ending every enemy in his way. He shredded through them and started throwing them into the air as if they were nothing. As the wildcats were not able to get near Gillian, Vigo yelled at them to attack the horse, which would cause him to fall. The wildcat units tried their best to attack the horse and get nearer to Gillian, but with no avail, and slaughtering through them like a hot butter through a knife. Vigo jumped into the air and came from behind Gillian, attacking with his might, but Gillian was able to use his shield. The dagger Vigo used went straight through the shield, and he said to Gillian, since he ruined Vigo's life, but he would not let Gillian to hinder his work, and he will make sure to end Gillian. He threw sharp knives towards the horse, stabbing horse in neck and causing it to fall and die. Gillian jumped from the horse, and the attack from Vigo attacks him, but Gillian was able to block it with his trusty axe. He said to Vigo that he is not the captain of the Ratatoskr mercenaries. Meanwhile, he hits Vigo with a shield, throwing him into the air and quite far. As he claimed to not be the captain of the Ratatoskr mercenaries, Vigo didn't believe such nonsense. Then who was he if not that? Gillian was so sure and said that he has discarded his past as it meant nothing to him anymore. In his special form full of mana, Gillian said that I am nothing but young Lord Ghislaine's subordinate. Vigo was super angry at him and charged towards Gillian that he will end Gillian at all costs. As he charges towards Gillian, and Gillian was ready to fight with him. The fight between Vigo Valanos and Gillian keeps getting worse, with both exchanging blows. During the fight, Viggo Valanos tells Gillian that the mercenary company was disbanded after he left. Viggo Valanos says that because of Gillian, he lost his purpose and ended up living a disgraceful life just to make ends meet. Gillian does not respond to this and slashes his axe swiftly at him. Viggo Valanos dodges the slash, making it a near miss. Viggo Valanos breaks Gillian's shield and says that he was prepared to sacrifice his entire life just to make the Ratatosk mercenaries the best in history. The clash stops. Viggo Valanos locks eyes with Gillian and asks him if he abandoned everything just to end up as a mere pawn of a spoiled noble. The situation gets tense again. Viggo Valanos, full of anger, yells that he cannot forgive him for his betrayal and throws his shuriken at Gillian. Gillian quickly dodges it by swinging his axe. The fight between the two continues. Viggo Valanos says that Gillian's strength has not improved since his days as captain years ago. It is as if time had left his strength unchanged. He then says that when Gillian was busy trying to cure his daughter, he was putting himself through countless battles just to improve. He arrogantly said that Gillian was no longer a match for him. He jumps in the air to deliver a final blow. Gillian dodges all Viggo Valanos' attacks, and just as Viggo Valanos is about to deliver a final blow, Gillian puts his mana around his hand and grabs the dagger single-handedly, displaying his sheer strength and expertise in battle. He asked Viggo Valanos if that was the reason for his vengeance. Viggo Valanos is surprised to see Gillian grabbing the dagger. He cannot believe that Gillian was not showing his full power and potential until now. Gillian hits Viggo Valanos, sending him flying across the battlefield and hit a tree. While Viggo Valanos is on the ground, Gillian walks toward him slowly, looking threatening, holding Viggo Valanos' weapon. He says that if he wanted to take revenge, there were a lot of chances to do so. He then asks why he did not come to unalive him earlier. Viggo Valanos replies that Gillian does not know the full story of this. He explains that he did come to unalive him before, but he did not find the captain of the Ratatosk mercenaries, only a weak old man who was not even worthy of meeting his end. Viggo Valanos screams and asks him where the Gillian he used to look up to disappear. Hearing this, Gillian tells him to grab his weapon. Gillian tells him that at this very moment, he is the captain of the Ratatosk mercenaries, not someone controlled by another person. Gillian raises his weapon with mana surrounding his body. Gillian says that he will show his former comrade the highest level of respect as the captain of the Ratatosk mercenaries. This excites Viggo Valanos as he is finally fighting the Gillian he used to look up to, the captain of the Ratatosk mercenaries. The fight between the two begins, with both exchanging heavy blows. Viggo Valanos says that this is exactly what he wished for. The fight continues. Their weapons clash again and again until Viggo Valanos is finally pushed to the ground. His whole life flashes before his eyes. In his final moments, Gillian acknowledges Viggo Valanos and says that he will remember Viggo Valanos, the 5th unit commander of the Ratatosk mercenaries. Viggo Valanos smiles in his final moments. He is unalived by Gillian, the person he looked up to the most. After the situation calms down, Ghislaine Perdium and Belinda approach Gillian, saying that they could bring in quite a lot of money selling the loot they get from these people. Gillian turns around, bowing down, apologizing for the delay he caused. Ghislaine Perdium tells Gillian that Viggo Valanos was much stronger than they thought. Ghislaine Perdium then remembers that when he first left home to start mercenary work, stories about Gillian helped him lay the foundation to become the mercenary king. He says that moving quickly was the right choice, and thanks to that he gained a reliable comrade. Ghislaine Perdium asks Gillian if he remembered who Viggo Valanos was, to which Gillian replies that he does, saying that it was his old comrade. Ghislaine Perdium thinks to himself, wondering what his old comrades are doing right now, saying that he will have to scout them someday since they have not met him yet. Ghislaine Perdium says that now that everything is settled, should they follow Belinda's suggestion and gather anything valuable that these guys might have? Belinda is excited to hear about this. She orders Gillian to take the lead and help them collect the loot. Gillian annoyingly replies that he is not their subordinate. Ghislaine Perdium, Belinda, and Gillian arrive 2 days later at the Perdium territory. Ghislaine Perdium says to himself that it feels good to have a home he can return to, since when he first ran away from home, he thought he would be able to come back any time. Gillian glances at the Perdium. Ghislaine Perdium asks Gillian about his thoughts on the land. Gillian replies that the land is great. Ghislaine Perdium says that the land is not good. He says that the houses are old, renovations are out of the question, and the fields are completely uncultivated. The land is not farmed because the farmers were forced to join the army. Gillian says that he has heard that Perdium is always at war because of the northern barbarians, but after seeing it firsthand, the situation is much worse than he expected. Belinda says that Gillian was not someone who knew this land's situation this well before. Just as she is saying this, Ghislaine Perdium interrupts her and says that he will resolve all the problems this land has. That is why he needs Gillian's strength. He says that it will be a long battle, a battle to eliminate everything connected to Duke Delphine and to protect what was taken for granted. Ghislaine Perdium says that he will take back this land no matter what it takes. As the three are approaching the Perdium, Gillian spots something and informs Ghislaine Perdium about it. Ghislaine Perdium is shocked to see a shadow that looks like something he knows. When he looks closely, he sees that it is his father, Zwalder Perdium. Meanwhile, at Perdium Castle, the strategies for the Perdium territory are being discussed among the heads: Perdium Knight Captain Randolph, Treasurer Albert, Perdium General Administrator Homer, and Count Perdium Zwalder Perdium. There seem to be a lot of proposals. The suggestion for reducing their forces is turned down by saying that if they cut their forces back any further, it will be difficult to maintain the front lines properly. The suggestion by Randolph for requesting more support from Rayfold is also turned down by Homer, as Rayfold reduced the support fund in the first place. Homer further says that this cannot be helped. They also need to rebuild the Forest of Beasts garrison that got partly destroyed during the last battle against the orcs. Even reducing the Night Order's forces was barely enough to give them some flexibility. An argument about the significant risk posed by the reduction of the forces is raised. Ghislaine Perdium observes the situation and thinks to himself that it is the same as it has always been. He thinks to himself that it has been only a few months since he became the young lord of Perdium, but as the mercenary king, it has been several decades. Ghislaine Perdium welcomes his father back. He remembers that as a child, he never liked his father for being so strict and serious all the time. Now that he has grown, he sees how tired and worn out his father is from the heavy weight of leading this land. Zwalder Perdium, sipping tea from the cup, says that he heard Ghislaine Perdium was away from the castle for about a week. Ghislaine replies that he visited the Rayfolds. Zwalder, upon hearing this, says that hopefully he did not cause any trouble this time. Ghislaine, sipping his tea, responds that he did not. Albert looks at Ghislaine and says that although it is hard to believe, he heard that Ghislaine won the duel against Cain and won some money. He locks eyes with Ghislaine, being suspicious that Ghislaine went there to gamble. Ghislaine thinks to himself that it was anything, then it was investing, not gambling, and then says to Albert that he just had business with Amelia. Homer advises Ghislaine that he will be succeeding Perdium, so he should think before he acts and not make any hasty decisions. Ghislaine ignores it and says that he gets it, and Homer does not have to worry about it. When Homer hears Ghislaine's reply, he gets infuriated at the thought of Ghislaine ignoring his sincere advice. All of these discussions are interrupted by Zwalder Perdium. He says that from what he has heard, Ghislaine made some good trouble while he was away. Ghislaine looks at him confused. Zwalder elaborates that he heard that Ghislaine had executed Jamal and Philip trying to sell Elena away. He asks Ghislaine if what he heard is true. Ghislaine remembers the two people his father mentioned. When Randolph hears this, he shouts in disbelief that there is no way he unalived them himself. He says that they probably fought against each other while the Ghislaine Perdium only delivered the final blow. Ghislaine Perdium tries to avoid the trouble. He thinks to himself that even though Jamal and Philip were traitors, the fact that they met their end due to him does not sit well with Knight Captain Randolph. When Ghislaine says that Randolph is correct, Randolph lets out a sigh of relief and says that he knew that was the case. The words of Zwalder cut through the conversation. He praises Ghislaine by saying that no matter the process, important thing is that Elena is alive. Ghislaine Perdium pauses for a moment and says to himself that this is the first compliment he has ever gotten from his father. Ghislaine Perdium asks if he can request something from his father, to which Homer replies that if he is about to ask for money as a reward, then he's going to cut him off right there, to which Randolph agrees and says that think about all the trouble you have caused so far. Zwalder yells at Ghislaine and says that he sold military provisions to get gambling money, lit the front fate on fire to grill an army horse, and melted all the armor to forge a legendary sword. Ghislaine does not know how to respond to this and says that it sure sounds like he did a lot. Ghislaine then looks at his father and says that he would just like his permission to pioneer the Forest of the Beasts. All four look at Ghislaine surprised and in disbelief. Ghislaine appears to be very confident while saying this. Meanwhile, this confidence soon fades away as he tells Belinda and Gillian that when he mentioned this to his father, Zwalder freaked out and started yelling at him. Belinda says that of course he would. The Forest of Beasts is filled with monsters. There is nothing to gain from dealing with it. Ghislaine turns towards Gillian and asks him if he heard this plan from Belinda. Gillian agrees, saying that Ghislaine meant to develop the Forest of the Beasts using the money from the Rayfold's daughter. Gillian further mentions about the Forest of the Beasts. This is the forest of meeting one's end, from which no one can return alive. Because of this, nothing is known about this place and everyone avoids it. He says that its notoriety is already well known in other regions as well. Ghislaine says that Gillian knows well about this place and that Gillian said there is nothing to gain by entering this place even when they both leave the room. As they are leaving, Belinda yells at them to stop as Ghislaine did not get permission to proceed. Ghislaine smirks while leaving and says that he just asked his father for permission out of courtesy. He did not need it in the first place. He then says that this must be done anyway. Belinda asks him the reason for him being obsessed with it, to which Ghislaine replies that he will tell her about it later. The reason for not telling her becomes clear as he thinks to himself that if he were to reveal it right now and word spread, it would only cause trouble. And if he were to successfully pioneer the forest, he would be able to earn a massive amount of funds. At the place not too far away from the forest entrance, there's a massive runestone vein buried there. The runestone is an ore infused with mana and is an extremely rare mineral that mages desire. It is used in all kinds of magic tools such as barriers, magic circles, magic scrolls, alchemy, magic research. It is involved in anything that uses mana. Ghislaine's thoughts go back to his previous life when Duke Delphine was the one who discovered it, but currently, only he knows about this piece of information. The idea makes him tighten his fist in anger. Belinda looks at Ghislaine in disapproval, sighs, and then says that he must have some sort of plan so she will follow his orders. Ghislaine is glad to get her on board. He orders Belinda to head to the nearby guild and hire some mercenaries. He says that around 200 should be fine. Belinda says that Ghislaine is really not holding back on spending the money he risked his life to get. Gillian, hearing the order from Ghislaine, asks him if he is sure about this order. Knowing that mercenaries are rough and hard to control, they will face problems if that many are gathered. They even might turn on their employer and take everything for themselves. Ghislaine replies that this is why they were both going to pick out the useful ones personally. Ghislaine means the most skilled among the small-scale mercenary group in the north. Hearing this, Gillian gets worried, saying that those crazy dogs would turn on their employer if things were to go south. Those crazy dogs are the Cerberus mercenaries. Both Gillian and Ghislaine set out to the north to put a leash on those crazy dogs. On the outside of the Zimbar territory, both Ghislaine and Gillian are seen to be approaching the Cerberus mercenaries. The scout sees both approaching and his comrade says that those poor souls have no idea what they are walking into. The scout takes a glance at Ghislaine and says that he looks like a noble and they can make a lot of money from him. As soon as he is about to finish his sentence, Gillian grabs his face and lifts him off the ground. The scout screams in agony. Gillian throws him straight ahead. Seeing this, the mercenaries get angry and start getting ready for battle. Suddenly, someone appears, looks at Ghislaine, and says that he looks like he is from a noble family, but he can't act so recklessly just because of his status. He appears to be holding 2 weapons and has 2 fully armored guards around him. He intimidatingly tells him not to expect to reach home alive. Ghislaine, confident and battle-ready, tells him to bring him their captain. As Ghislaine Perdium approaches the Cerberus mercenaries, he is met with a person holding 2 heavy weapons. This person is seen to be surrounded by 2 fully armored guards. He asks the person who the captain of the guild is. The person does not respond to this. He says that Ghislaine Perdium has lost his mind barging into this place like this. He then says that it is time for Ghislaine Perdium to learn the meaning of taking responsibility. He swings his flail and launches it in the direction of Ghislaine Perdium. As soon as it is about to hit Ghislaine Perdium, Gillian blocks it with his weapon. The guards are surprised to see this, and the person is also surprised to see Gillian easily blocking his flail with his weapon. The flail falls on the ground. Ghislaine Perdium realizes that words alone will not do anything. Ghislaine Perdium orders Gillian to do just enough damage to these people that they will not meet their end. Gillian raises his dagger. This causes the flail's chain to wrap around the person's wrist. The person is then raised up in the air. The weapon hits the person in the chest. The person screams in agony. The guards charge for Gillian, aiming to get revenge for this. Gillian again wraps the chain around the guard's wrist and launches him into the other guards. The guards go flying straight ahead. Gillian gives an intimidating stare to the remaining guards. The remaining guards get scared and start shaking. Ghislaine Perdium gets annoyed and tells them to run away and bring him their captain. Suddenly, a person appears, confused by the commotion and rubbing sleep from his eyes. The guards stand at attention when they see this person. The person introduces himself. This person is Kaer, the captain of the Cerberus mercenaries. He asks Ghislaine Perdium why he was looking for him. Gisling Perdium says that he is here to request something from the Cerberus mercenaries. Kara mockingly asks him what kind of person asks for a request by beating down his subordinates. Kara looks at Gisling Perdium in the eyes and says that a noble should be more knowledgeable when it comes to manners. Gisling Perdium says that this is his own way of greeting him. He says that this was the best way to tame him properly. Kara is surprised to hear Gisling Perdium's response. He agrees to listen to Gisling Perdium's request. He asks him what kind of request he has. Gisling Perdium says that he wants to hire him to pioneer the forest of beasts. The guards get scared when Gisling Perdium mentions this forest. The guards remember this forest clearly. They recall this forest being filled with monsters and located near Perdium territory. Kara asks him what kind of person he is to go to such a dangerous place. Gisling Perdium introduces himself. He tells him that he is the young lord of Perdium, Gisling Perdium. Kara and the guards pause for a while. They then burst out into laughter. They call him names like the young lord of rumors and that they knew Gisling Perdium was out of his mind. They start laughing that Gisling Perdium is planning to pioneer the forest of beasts. Kara looks at Gisling Perdium and says that a noble like him who grew up in a greenhouse does not know what the forest of beasts is like. He then says that he does not need to hear anything more from Gisling Perdium. The guards point their weapons at Gisling Perdium and Gillian. Gisling Perdium tells Kara that he heard this mercenary group was quite skilled, but this seems like a hoax. Kara puts his feet on the table, locks eyes with Gisling Perdium, and tells him not to mess with him. Kara tells him that Gisling Perdium knows that they are mercenaries and they do not need to do anything that does not pay off. Gisling Perdium smirks and says that it is always the weaklings that come up with the excuses. Kara does not respond for a while. He then tells Gisling that all he does is throw around pathetic provocations. Kara says that Gisling Perdium is not even worth putting an end to. He tells Gisling Perdium to just hand over some money for the trouble and get lost. Gisling Perdium tells him that this will not happen. Gisling Perdium requests Kara for Moriana's recognition against him. Everyone in the room is surprised when Gisling Perdium mentions this. Kara asks him if he even knows what that is. Gisling Perdium replies that of course he does. Moriana's recognition is a traditional betting method passed down among mercenaries. When two people agree to it, they fight using only a single dagger without relying on mana. Each of them has one of their arms tied together. There is a small circle around both. Stepping out of that small circle also counts as a loss. This forces both of them into a brutal battle within limited space and movement. In most cases, both end up meeting their end during this. The loser has to admit defeat and obey the winner. The loser ends up becoming the winner's dog. Gisling Perdium asks Kara about his thoughts on the idea. Gillian is shocked to see Gisling Perdium knowing about such a filthy tradition among the mercenaries. In the mercenary world, rejecting this challenge would mean that the person is admitting to one's weakness. Moriana's recognition is something that can never be turned down. Kara starts laughing at Gisling Perdium. He grins and tells his subordinates that this noble wants to be recognized in a mercenary's way. He then agrees to fight Gisling Perdium. Gisling Perdium and Kara have one of their arms tied together in a circle. Kara's subordinates cheer him on, telling him to put an end to Gisling Perdium. Kara says that Gisling Perdium cannot back away from this now. He then tells Gisling Perdium that he has already done this 5 times. Gisling Perdium pulls Kara's arm towards him. Gisling Perdium tells Kara that he has done this over 100 times. Kara is shocked to hear this. Gisling Perdium and Kara break into an intense battle. Both of them attack with their swords. They nearly miss each other's heads. The fight continues. Slash upon slash, the two would not stop. Gisling Perdium and Kara seem equally matched. The two remain locked in battle. A leg clash occurs, both with equal energy. Kara praises Gisling Perdium for holding up so well all this time. It looked like he was not just all talk. Kara still assumes Gisling Perdium is lying. He says that earning Moriana's recognition even once is a difficult task. It was unbelievable that he said he earned it 100 times. Kara tells him that he should at least make it believable. The crowd goes wild for this battle. They want their captain to win. The noble had disrespected them all. Gillian watches close by. The fight was very unfavorable. The area of the circle was way too small. It was barely enough for one person to lie down. The rule forced the two to use pure strength instead of mana. Gisling's hands were tied and there was a weight difference as well. The noble duke could barely dodge or block because of these restrictions. Kara can easily take control and dominate the battle. Gillian starts to prepare himself for the worst. If the Grand Duke got into danger, Gillian was going to step in. Giselaneperdium dodges Korra's attack. His body starts to feel the pain. It was from when he had blocked an attack earlier. Without Mana's protection, the hits kept stacking despite the block. The damage was building up. Korra acts cocky. He asks the Grand Duke if he was starting to struggle. It was pathetic to Korra that Giselaneperdium was trying hard to resist his strength. Among all the nobles Korra had met, Giselaneperdium was the one who was determined the most. But this was as far as it goes. Korra was starting to understand Giselaneperdium. Korra takes note of the noble's strategy. Giselaneperdium was blocking attacks with his own blade. Then he endured the smaller hits by blocking them with his body. However, Moriana's recognition was a fight without any mana. Over time, the impact would build up even if he blocks it. It was starting to show on his face. Giselaneperdium knew of the shock building up in his legs. The Grand Duke is dazed, but he locks in again. This pain made the fight even more fun. Korra gets even more aggressive. He changes up his attacks and keeps bombarding Giselaneperdium. The noble keeps dodging or blocking. The fight continues for what seems like forever, attacks upon attacks. Korra used his knee to attack again. He knows the noble's legs are getting weak. Giselaneperdium blocks the attack with his own leg. This was Korra's opportunity to finish him off. Giselaneperdium's back was wide open for an attack. Julian readies his weapon to step in and save the Grand Duke. However, Giselaneperdium smirks and dodges instantly. With the dodge, he attacked Korra's side. A vertical slash across his body. The crowd riles up. Korra does not lose his focus and begins to attack again. Giselaneperdium's speed had increased. He dodges and slashes Korra again. The crowd worries about the captain. They cheer for Captain Care. Gillian watches closely. The battle continues. Giselaneperdium dodges and rams his shoulder in Korra's face. He starts to throw rapid punches. Things were getting overwhelming for Korra. Giselaneperdium flips his dagger and pokes Korra in the arm. Korra groans in pain. This angers him 10 times more. Korra begins to attack relentlessly. He begins to wonder what trick Giselaneperdium was pulling. A few minutes ago, he was overwhelmed by Korra. Now Giselaneperdium had control of the battle. Gilliam starts to understand what was happening. Straining with force meant the muscles would get stiff and the body would get strained. Attacking like this meant losing flexibility. Giselaneperdium was using Korra's strength against him. The Grand Duke relaxed and used Korra's strength into his own flow. Gillian did not expect Giselaneperdium to overcome the weight disadvantage like this. It was a 200 IQ move. Giselaneperdium gains the upper hand now. He says Korra's determination was impressive. If it was someone else, they would have used mana and broken the rules. Korra was impressed by Giselaneperdium's skill. He really does seem like he had done this 100 times. The captain's position was also gained through Moriana's recognition. Korra says he would not break the rules despite being at a disadvantage. Giselaneperdium is impressed with his rules. Korra has a move up his sleeve. The conditions for victory were not limited to just one. Korra grabs Giselaneperdium and begins to throw him. If he steps out the arena, he will lose. No matter how skilled he was, he could not fight gravity. There was no choice for Giselaneperdium but to touch the ground. This was Korra's win. Giselaneperdium thinks fast. He uses his dagger and swings around with Korra's momentum. He turns the energy against Korra, kicking him, then swinging him towards the outside. Giselaneperdium gets behind him, pinning him down right outside the circle. It was the end. Giselaneperdium had won. The knights watched in terror. Giselaneperdium was victorious. Korra speaks from underneath him. He asks what kind of skill the noble had. Giselaneperdium acts like a noble. He tells Korra his attitude was not right towards the person who was going to become his master. Giselaneperdium pulls Korra back on his feet. Korra is confused and asks why. The fight was over. What could he want now? Giselaneperdium says he had not stepped out the circle yet. Korra still does not understand. Before he could make any sense, Giselaneperdium charges up a big punch. He says it was time for Korra to start training as his subordinate. The captain had become the Grand Duke's inferior.